Well, John, thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Sincerely-Unmatched. We've been friends for a very, very, very long time,
Yeah.
and it is a pleasure to have you part of an episode. Maybe you want to introduce yourself to the listeners of what you do. I know I know you're a musician, but you do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I'll give you the mic.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name's John Torres, and I'm a songwriter for a living primarily. And I think I've been a songwriter since I was a kid, and I'm a singer as well. So I write music, I perform. I'm on my way to a gig right now, so it's all part of the hustle. But yeah, I've been making music since I was about 16 years old, maybe, and I'm a little bit older than that now. And so I've been doing it for a while, and yeah, I feel real lucky. It's what I love to do, and I've been able to do it for a living. So it's very, very cool.
No, that's amazing. I was actually talking to my cousin Alex on the phone yesterday and also today, and I was telling him how because he was like, "How did I meet you?" And I told him that we met through Ramsey and uh, and how you recorded my very first song, "Life Is Hard," and how our relationship grew through over the years, and how you would give me
Yeah.
advice on how to save, on how to time manage. I always tell this story when I went to visit you one time to go record, and you were making a plan, right? You're making a plan of what are you and your son are gonna do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. And at the time, I was like, that's crazy, like to plan super ahead. But it's a beautiful thing because now I'm 30. I'm already in
Yeah.
the beach, and life is not a life without a routine, without discipline, and through every podcast, even through my friends off the podcast, I always mention that story and also how routine actually helps you become successful. Not only successful in money, but successful
Yeah.
in life, in health, right? Because
Absolutely.
and then I always tell this story where you told me one time about putting $5 down, and if you want to travel, I always tell myself, I'm gonna have money to do that. I'm gonna how did you get to life when you became very disciplined and have a routine in your life?
Did you ask when did I?
Yeah, when and how? Like, what
Yeah.
inspired you to do that?
How that happened? Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first off, let me ask you, how old were you when we met? I was just thinking about it right now. Like, you were a teenager, right?
I believe I was like 14 or 15, if I believe.
Holy smokes, that's crazy, man.
Yeah,
That's nuts. Just hearing that you're 30.
I always tell Ramsey because I met Ramsey when he was 30, and now I'm 30.
Yeah.
It's
Wow, that's nuts.
yeah,
That's really awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think how did it start with me? I think the fact that I was picking music as a career, which I think I got serious about that when I went to college, and when I was in college, I was probably like I must have been it was definitely before I graduated. I must have been like 19 or 20 when in my head I was like, I think this is what I want to do is like play music. And so right around that time is when I got into it more seriously. And I think because I was doing music, there's not like a way, there's no like blueprint for how you make a living, how you're going to support yourself. And so I think just knowing that is how I got interested in like, I started reading books originally it was about the music industry. Like, how do you make it in music? How do you get successful? How do you do any of this? How do you make a buck doing it?
Yeah.
And the more I like was going down that road, the more I was like just wanting to learn. And then it became about like managing money and managing time. And some of it I think came naturally to me because that's sort of my personality. I'm pretty meticulous. I'm like a list maker. I've been journaling. Like, I've kept a journal since I was about 15, and so I was always like kind of introspective. And then I was always writing a lot. Like just that's part of getting into music was writing lyrics. So because I was always doing that, I think I was prone to being a little more introspective. And then I honestly like I started just devouring self-help books, things like how to be a better, how to be more successful in business, how to manage your money, how to like, and gosh, I feel like for all of that I've done, there's still so much I don't know how to do, and so much I still wish I could do better. And it hasn't led to just like, oh, this is easy. It's
Of course.
But it's definitely been helpful. And I think the thing that I'd say the other reason why is because there was a lot I wanted to do, and so knowing that I had a whole lot of ambitions made me feel like I better manage my time well, because there's not a it's the one resource that you don't get back, and so I
Wow.
really wanted to do that well if I
And,
could.
and and I feel like you hit it. You said that very well. I was kind of in the same position where I feel like being very manageable with your time, because, and not just that, but being organized with your time
Yeah,
and all of that, because there's so much that I want to do, and I'm really getting into that place where I'm trying to get organized. But it's
yeah,
just, okay, I want to do this, but I want to do this, and I have to do this, and it's all about like I seen you do it, So I always respected people that just didn't say I'm gonna do it, but actually planned it and do it,
yeah.
and be about the walk and the talk, right?
Totally,
And,
man. And I think at the end of the day, people do what they want to do. So in other words, there are a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, I want to write a novel, or I want to travel the world, or I want to like, whatever. I want to record an album, right?"
yeah,
But then they don't do it. They end up like what they really do is they stay home, they play video games, and they watch TV. And,
yeah,
and what I realize is there's nothing wrong with that. But I think those people, that's what they really want to do, is stay
yeah,
home and play video games and watch TV. Because if they really want to do the other stuff, they start realizing that it's hard to do. It's not easy, right? That's why not everybody does it. Is because it takes a lot of work and initiative, and it's only. And again, I'm not dissing on anybody who does that. Like, there's nothing wrong with just saying "f that." I'm gonna just live a relaxed life, because that's great too. Like, I'm just gonna enjoy myself. Like, that's fine. But I think what happens is you start breaking down what you really want to do, and seeing the commitment that it takes to get there. Well, whatever it is, And there's no, I really don't think there's a like it doesn't make you more virtuous that you do that, but I just think there's something to breaking it down if you really want to do something, And that's what I always found to be the case. I have this one story. Is like I remember being in high school, and me and my friends, we're just dumb kids, We're like making trouble, and I always loved it whenever we would do something creative as a group, like me and the group of friends that I was in. And it felt so rare whenever that happened, because they just wanted to hang out and party and make trouble, and which was a lot of fun for me too. But I loved it way more whenever we did something creative. Like there was a couple times we made movies together, or we were like talking about music or film. And when that was going on, like it inspired in me something. And the same thing happened in music, man. Like when I was in bands as a young teenager, like 15, 16, it was so, I had so much fun playing with other musicians, but I got so bummed out because I felt like I couldn't get them to cooperate. Like
yeah,
everybody had their own vision, everybody wanted to do their own thing, and it was the hardest thing on earth to get everybody to like do one thing. This is why like bands like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, like the groups that make it, are so rare, and it's normally because they're young kids when they're able to cooperate, and they're able to keep that success and that sustain that teamwork for a lifetime, and
well,
that's a rare gift, And but anyway, all that to say that when I found that people weren't naturally good at being like constructive or being team, like being playing on a team like that, I think internally I figured like I want to figure out how to do this for myself, because I can't depend on people to be that way. And so that's part of the reason too. It just made me like want to okay. And so list making and setting your goals, like writing down what you want, became so important to me, and it still is like so important to me to figure out like why we're happy. If you feel unhappy or you feel bored in your life, I feel like there's a way to analyze why you're feeling that way, and you can really get to the bottom of it. And it's normally because you're not living out some desire that you really have, for
well,
what you want.
well. I don't know if you want to, Alex.
Yeah, like Pedro said, nice to have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Thanks.
He always talks about you, and it's just a pleasure to meet you, man. And I just basically want to touch upon like the journaling, bro. I think that writing is a big aspect of your life from the looks of it. Like I believe, like I mean, you basically go about writing lyrics and writing down your goals and your dreams. Like how did all of that begin? Like with the writing, besides just like writing lyrics himself, but like the whole journaling. Like how do you just like pick up a journal and start writing, or what do you write about, bro? Like your days or like life
Yeah.
experiences
Uh,
or
yeah, it's funny. I'll tell you, it's a funny story how it started was very, I had this friend in high school, a guy named Greg.
mm.
And Greg was like, gosh, he was like an old soul. That phrase where someone's just like older in the age than, like he was a teenager like me, but you would think he was like in his 40s or 50s. He was like a wise guy for his age, and he kept a journal. He's the first guy I ever saw who kept a journal.
Wow.
And it was in high school, and he was so cool. He used to write lyrics, and it was kind of like hip hop. Like he wrote really cool rhymes, and I was just like, I saw it, like he would read them sometimes, and I'd just be like, so honestly, the truth is, it started out of kind of envy. Like I was like, I want to be like this guy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I bought a journal, and I wrote dumb stuff in there. I just wrote poems, and I drew pictures, and I just kept it going. And then over the years, it was right around the time I started writing lyrics. So I was in bands. So I would use the journal to write lyrics and you name it. And man, I got like drawers full of journals now, like just like 20, 30 journals from over the years. And that's changed a lot over the years because now I'll use like Google or I'll use like Google Drive to journal. But I got like thousands of pages. So it went from and it still is kind of a discipline. I have to say, it's not always something that comes easy, but like, yeah, I'll journal like what happened or what's going through my day or processing how I'm feeling about things. You get in a fight with your lady, or you have a rift with a good friend, and you want to process like how you're feeling about it. Or, gosh, career. Like I'll be frustrated about like things aren't happening as fast as I want them to, or anything like that, or stuff going on in the world. So I think the discipline of it is just finding the time to do it. But like, it's also there's something kind of romantic in an artistic way about it because I find that I'll find myself in places like I have a gig today. I'm going to Laguna to play this gig, and it's a long gig. It's like a 4-hour gig, and there's a lot of downtime in between. So I'll play a set, and then in between the sets, I'll just sit at a table with a journal. And there's something cool about being in a place by yourself and just journaling, like whether it's a poem or you're writing lyrics or you're drawing a picture, and it's rad because you can go back and look at that stuff years later, and you always feel like it looks stupid because you're just like, oh God, I'm so dumb, But but looking back on it, there's something also real special about it. It's almost like the way photographs, like when you look at old photos, it takes you back to that place, So I think there's just a lot of nostalgia in writing it down and putting it all out there, and yeah, it's something it's a habit I'm really glad I have. And I got a 9-year-old boy, and he's got a journal now, and he's 9. Like I didn't start till I was like 15. So, and it's really cool because I've seen every now and then he'll write like how he's feeling about something, and it's like it's really rad that he's doing that at such a young age. I think it's gonna like unlock in him a whole lot of potential to express himself.
Yeah, and although like some of us may look back at some of our thoughts like this is a bit cringe, or as you mentioned, you're just like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
like what the fuck.
no, no,
But at the same time, it's also really cool to see how you kind of progress and grow, not just with your thoughts, but mentally as you get older as well, because you're basically looking somewhat as on your evolution as time goes by.
100%. That's like maybe the coolest part of it, is you just get to see yourself. And there's some of my journals I haven't looked at in years, and there's just like I said, there's boxes of them, and so it's really cool to kind of to check that stuff out and see, how you change or don't change. By the way, that's
Yeah.
another interesting. Some of the things about us just really are pretty fixed, and stay the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then no, I really do agree. I want to go back to where you were talking about how you do what you want to do, because I know there's times when, for myself, and I always say this, like when I was younger, I was like, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. I would post it on Facebook. I'm gonna write a book.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And then that day never came. And then
yeah,
there was some life changing experiences that kind of made me it's like, man, life is too short. You know, I
Yeah,
had that like experience, and I was like, nah, I got to do something about it. You know, because
that's
I
right.
mean, I'm getting older, and tomorrow's not promised to nobody. Uh,
Yeah.
so to me, obviously, there's times when you go through like certain different stages in your life where you have that realization. You know, whether it can be through music, whether it can be through movies, through whatever paintings, drawings. Um, I know, like, there's times when I look at a lyric, some lyrics or some songs, and I had a backpack full of them, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, damn, did I write that? That's crazy. Can't believe I came up with that. You know, and I
Love
know,
that.
and I went to your studio before. I see you work a couple times, and and that really inspired me to evolve as an artist. Um,
Mm.
I've always wanted to ask you, who was those artists that inspired you, or bands that inspired you to evolve more in your music, or that inspired you to get into music?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I'll start with the last question first. So to get into music, is it's kind of silly, but I think when I was a kid, I used to like impersonate singers without knowing. Like I was really, I grew up in the '90s, so like 80s and '90s really, but like the
Yeah.
'90s was when I was a teenager, you know.
Mm.
So at that time, there was a whole lot of R&B that was going on, like vocalists, like
Mhm.
Boys to Men was a huge band, like groups like that. And I remember, without knowing it, I was learning how to sing, but only because I was just a big fan, like everybody does. Like I was just a fan of the music I was into, and so I was like singing a lot, and I didn't realize like that I was learning how to sing by doing that. You know, I thought I was just like everybody else, like singing in the shower and stuff, or in the
Yeah.
car or whatever, and like. And it wasn't in like so I would like basically try and sound as much as I could like most of the R&B singers got you know again Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
just the big names of the time, you know. And so I remember hanging out with some friends one day, and it must have been about the eighth grade, and I was jokingly like impersonating some R&B group, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Dude, that's good," and I was like, I thought they meant like funny. I was like, "You mean funny, right?" And they're like, "No, no, no, like what the fuck you can sing?"
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, and I have to say, like my fragile ego at that time, that's all I needed was
Yeah.
like that little bit of encouragement of somebody saying you're good at something.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all as humans kind of are looking for, right? If someone tells you, like, man, you're good at something, it's such a stroke to our ego, and it makes us feel so special, and it makes us feel like there's a calling, like there's a purpose
Hmm.
to us, right? And that's all it took for me, you know, was just a little spark of encouragement to be like, okay, well then I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. That was really it. It's kind of sad to say, but it's true. Like,
Yeah.
and I think after that, it was really, you know, I'd say those years of life were where I was inspired a lot by different things, but very general stuff. I loved U2, and I loved like Bob Marley. And then like a few years later, like Dave Matthews and the singer-songwriter movement kind of got big, and certain grunge bands had like singer-songwriter vibes. Later on in life, it was like a guy named Nick Drake, who's like a '60s folk singer-songwriter guy. Bob Dylan eventually
Yeah.
inspired me quite a bit. There's a guy called Colin Hay who was in an '80s group called Men at Work back in the day that I've gotten really inspired by over the years. A band Elbow. I love Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie, and like lots of people who just mostly lyricists.
Yeah.
Obviously the Beatles. You know, the Rolling Stones a little bit. Paul Simon. You know, lots of singer songwriters over the years have really moved me, you know. And as I get older, I'm like, man, I'm just blown away by all the stuff that people are creating now. It's just like it just keeps getting cooler and more intense.
Do
Yeah,
do you ever stop and like do you ever like stop and like realize like I'm actually like doing it, you know? Like, you
I
know.
I do. I mean, I think we're always our own worst critic. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like I think like I'm always like, well, it didn't happen for me, right? It never
Yeah.
became. I never got to the level that I was hoping to get to, you know. But yes, to answer your question, man, I look back on what I've done, and I've written hundreds of songs, and
Yeah.
I've recorded like, you know, there's probably like 75 actual like recordings that I'm really proud of, you know, and so I'm really glad that I did that. Like I feel like that stuff is out there and people can find it. And every now and then I have those conversations with people who heard something I did years ago.
Yeah.
And it's so encouraging to me. It's the same way I get that pinprick that happened all those years ago with friends saying I sing good. Like,
Yeah.
there's something really fulfilling and encouraging when people have heard a song of mine that I thought nobody listened. You know, you think nobody, you
Yeah.
put these things out there and you think nobody hears them. And then every now and then somebody really is like, man, that really moved me, or I really love that song.
Yeah.
And it makes your whole day. It's just like, okay, cool. Then I'm just, so yeah, to answer your question, like, I feel real grateful that I've done what I've done, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
change it for the world. Like, and I'm still doing it. You know, I'm constantly writing new songs and trying to work on the next thing. You know, whatever it is.
No, and that's beautiful. I know there's times when I have my music on shuffle and then one of your songs comes out and I'm just like, that's my buddy right there. You know, it's a beautiful feeling to listen because I'm a musician as well, a rapper musician,
Yeah.
and to me it's like if when somebody like listens to my songs, and you're right, we are our own critic, like our own worst critic, like.
Totally.
Go back and like, man, I could have done better. I could have said this, you know, and you
Totally.
another version, you know, and it's
Absolutely.
tough. But at the end of the day, is I know Ramsey would always tell me like you got to do it because this is your work and this is your work and you got to love it, not for everybody else, but for you, you know.
That's
And
100%. That's the best advice. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and for me, like you have a lot of great music. To me, there's two of them that I really like, that I really enjoy listening to. Is Hallelujah and also Here in History. Here in History is like my top favorite from you.
I love that.
I when I really heard it, I had it on repeat. I think it's a really great song.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, both of those were really cool tunes. Like Hallelujah got written in like 30 minutes. I remember that song. I sat at the piano one day and just started playing it, and it just came out. And it was, yeah, a really just, I don't know, it was just real easy to. Some songs take me years to write. Some just whip out like that, and that one was just instant, you know. And then we got some friends to play strings on it, and Here in History was a little bit more of a team effort. I wrote that with my friend Tim Kopsa, who's been a partner of mine for years and years, a great guitar player. And Tim and I, he wrote the guitar to that, and I wrote the lyrics. Also came together in that one a couple of days, you know. And then I think what makes that track really good is the production of it. Like Tim really kind of produced it, and I was still a young learning. Like I hadn't learned as much as he's a really gifted producer, composer, and obviously guitar instrumentalist, you know. And so we really put that together through a lot of like, and we brought in some people to play on it, which was great. Like my friend Dominic came in, and like that song has like really great like soundscape stuff. Like it's really almost like cinematic, right? There's a lot of eerie sounds and stuff on it. And this guy Dominic really helped make that stuff come out. Really fun tune, and that's one of those ones where I really feel like lyrically, I don't even know what that song's about.
Yeah.
It's such a like, but it's very like densely poetic. And I remember writing it, and just like you were saying earlier, like it was one of those ones where I'm like, how did that come out? Like, how did that come out of me? Like, it was really, that's a really fun one. I'm really proud of that. I'd say even more than Hallelujah, I'm really proud of Here in History as a production, because it feels real professional, you know. And for a guy who's otherwise unknown in the world, I look back on a song like that, and I'm like, it's so cool to me that people can find that song maybe years after I'm gone and be like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like, what is, you know, that's
it really, really
cool
is.
Knowing
that song
that
is very universal.
out there, you know? Is really encouraging.
You can listen to it, like you can listen to it if you fall asleep or just walk, you know, or anything.
Totally.
Out there barbecuing, you know. I don't know. You wanted to add anything to that, Alex?
No, I mean, honestly, like it's just kind of. I mean, I personally haven't heard your music yet, bro, but I'll definitely take a look at it. But probably like with your writing as well. Do you think like as you go along with age as well, and you start writing down like these lyrics, do you think a lot of your music changes as well as you get a little bit older?
Absolutely. You know, it's kind of interesting because your life changes, and then what you write about changes, how you write, how you know. As I've gotten older, I don't take myself so seriously anymore, and I don't
Mhm.
think of myself as so. I think there was a lot more self-importance when I was younger. Um, I'm not trying to impress people as much,
Yeah.
so I feel like I take my time when I can with writing, so that
Yeah.
I'm not like just trying to get it out there because I'm trying to get successful or because I want people to like it.
Hmm.
Wow.
So because I'm taking my time, I feel like I'm trying to be more thoughtful about what I say and why I'm saying it, because I don't have to like again, I don't have to impress anybody. So I'm just kind of like, how do I make it so that it moves me? And the more I've done that, also my values have changed. Like I'm just trying to be more present than I've ever been, and because of that, I think it's changing the way I write. And whether that's better or worse, I don't know. That's up to people listening. They might like it better before. But no, for me, it just feels more fulfilling, and again, I think it ends up taking a little longer because I'm trying to be more thoughtful.
Hmm.
Also, I'm not writing about, romance in high school. Like you're a different person then.
Yeah.
So life experience and being a father, and
Yeah.
I'm expecting another kid right now. Like that, life just changes. So like your values are different, and who you are is different. And yeah, in like invariably, it's going to make you write differently, and have a different point of view. So for sure, yeah.
No, and I agree. I remember well, I was so excited to go record Life is Hard at your studio, and I was like, I'm gonna impress my friends. I'm a rapper. This and that, and like right now it's like I agree 100%. Like right now it's more like about not selfish. Like this is for me, but because we have people listening, and I mean I'm grateful. I'm sure you're grateful as well, but at least
Yeah.
right now, like I'm in a position where I want to self grow.
Yeah.
I want to develop my character more. Like, what could I do differently? It's
Yeah.
and lyrics change. You go through different things and you want to write about it. Not everything's gonna. I mean, yes, some things like we said stay the same, but eventually
Yeah.
things outgrow, and it's beautiful that we can write about it, take pictures, draw, and have memories of those things that can take us back and be like, man, I outgrew that person, that old person of me,
Mm-hmm.
and you have those experiences to self develop yourself,
Totally.
and I've seen you. I mean, I've seen you. I'm not saying grow over the years, but I've seen like how do I say? I've seen your character grow more and more and more. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been there for me. I mean, I'm sure as well for myself. Like I've been in positions where you helped me out in so many times in so many different levels, right? And that's why I feel like it's very important to like know like who you are. You know what I mean? Like know who you are,
Yeah.
and have a balance in every aspect in your life, spiritually, mentally, financially, and always seek for help and for growth as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as much as you can, right? Life's not easy. As your song
yeah,
said, life is hard. It's
yeah,
not it's not easy, And I think like there's gonna be ups and downs, and we're gonna make mistakes. I certainly have made my share. So it's yeah, it's we're all just kind of trying to figure this crazy thing out. And
yeah.
I don't think there's no right way. It's just whatever works for you and makes you feel good about you,
Yeah,
right?
and at
It's
this,
also life's also short, right? It's here today and gone tomorrow, so we just got to make the best of it.
Mm.
yeah, and at the same time, us as listeners, like we're happy that you guys also grow along with your music because, I mean, if we become like real big fans of you guys and we're connected to what you present or what you produce, I mean, as you get older, it's like the same thing. You get me? Like for the most part, a lot of us we listen to music because we somewhat try to resonate with it or it just resonates with us.
Yeah,
So either or, and it'd be
yeah,
kind of weird. You get me? Like you mentioned, like growing up with an artist and he's still talking about like his high school sweetheart.
Yeah,
wouldn't be cool, right?
Yeah,
You want to expect that people are going to grow, right? And
yeah,
yeah, that's so true. It's funny because there are artists like that too, right? Where they got famous when they were a teenager or like young 20s, and then you see them like 10, 20 years later and they're doing the same thing. Like there's something weird about it, right? And they're like
Yeah.
haven't evolved at all. It's really a weird thing how that, you know, how that happens. And I'm always much more intrigued by the people who change, even if their music or their art isn't quite as cool to me anymore. I still appreciate that people are like living their lives. Like it's not just about their art, you know, it's about them evolving as people, you know. So yeah.
And John, is there any books that you recommend?
Oh wow.
I know you mentioned earlier about some books, so it'd be cool if you can, like mention some of
Yeah.
the books that you read or read that kind of inspired you to grow more.
Man, there's so many. There's so many. God, I'm trying to think if any one stands out that like, because I feel like so many of them were formative for me. Like there's so many books, like okay, like money management or something like that. I loved like Rob Kiyosaki's books. Like he wrote like this one called The Cash Flow Quadrant and another one called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Those were really good, like how to manage money books. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by a guy named Covey is a really good like how like these are all like self help kind of books. Like I'm a pretty big reader, so like literature and things like that have helped me in different ways. A boatload of spiritual books that ultimately got me to a place where I feel like mindfulness is an important thing. I started with the guy with this there was this old Trappist monk. What's his name now? It's escaping me. Oh gosh, I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah.
Richard Rohr's one of them. He's got some really great books. But yeah, my gosh, so there's so many. I almost don't know where to begin because so many of them have been like formative for where I was at different times in my life.
Yeah.
Now it's like if I were advising somebody, I'd say like first and foremost get into mindfulness. Like mindfulness is basically a form of meditation that helps you just acknowledge like and learn how to be present. And to me, being present, like being fully present, is what I would say forms the backbone of like being able to have peace and joy in your life, which to me are like the highest things any person can attain. If you have peace and joy, most people don't even know what those things are. They just know what like happiness is, you know. And I think peace and joy are sort of deeper level values if you can attain them in life, and they're fleeting. They're really hard to get.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd say like I would point anybody towards like a mindfulness practice of learning how to be present. That's what I would say.
Wow, that's beautiful. I feel like that's something that I'm working on as well because there's times that I deal with anxiety. I deal with a lot of anxiety, especially when I'm because I can be. It's crazy because I can be around a lot of people if I'm like performing, but if I'm at the gym or if I'm somewhere and there's just a lot of people, I just get like kind of the anxiety part. But there's times when I try to keep into practice not just prayer but meditation. Even when I'm at the gym, I try to like, okay, this is where I'm at now. So when I touch that bar, I'm like, okay, So that anything that you recommend, like how do I say it? Like kind of like to be in that in the moment. Like is there anything that you do to be in the moment?
Like exercises or techniques?
I would say totally. I mean, I would say the mindfulness practice that I try and use is it's very basic. It's basically just again, if I can practice it as much as possible, like I don't even think how long you meditate or whatever is important as doing it at all. So like if you're able to like for me, like I used to do when I first started doing it, I was doing meditation like once or twice a day for like 20 minutes, which is really long. For me, and some people can meditate for hours.
Yeah.
I can't. I have too much ADD, and for me, I think like what I do now is I try and meditate like at least 3-4 times a week, and it's literally like 8 to 10 minutes at a time. And all I do when I meditate is the practice is to kind of close, sit in a comfortable chair, close your eyes, try not to have any music or sound on or anything. And then the way I heard it described to me, which is a great metaphor, is like if your mind is a river and every thought is a boat that's going down the river, then the goal of meditation is just to try not to get inside the boats, right? But that's impossible because we're humans and we're going to think, right? So whenever you find yourself like in one of the boats, so to speak, thinking about what a conversation you have to have later, or work you got to do, or what's for lunch, just you have a word that you tell yourself in your mind, like relax or anything. It could be anything, and you say that word to yourself so that you can get out of the boat and then just do the same thing and get over back to the thing where you're just watching the thoughts go by and not getting in the boats. But and again, a good measure is not a day when you don't get in the boats, because being human is about sometimes when you're meditating, you get in every boat. You just can't not think about it, right? You got an itch on your arm. You're thinking about work you got to do later, or some conversation you want to have, or anything, right? And that's okay. I think the key is not to judge your meditation, but just to do it. And the thing that I started to discover after doing it for several years is that you start to experience that you are not your thought, right? Like if you meditate enough, you start noticing that you're not the feelings you're having, you're not your dreams or your goals. You're not your old wounds or your anger, or anything like that. Your emotions. You, and when I say you are, what I mean is like, have you ever tried to locate like where is you? Is it in your mind? Is it in your body? Which part of you is you, right? And I think what I've kind of experienced through meditation is this experience of myself as the observer of my thoughts. Like we are sort of this thing that sort of sits above and behind everything, that just sees it happening, right? So like you can choose to not get in the boat of being angry today or of being sad. Like you can just observe how you feel, and the you, so to speak, is this thing that's happening behind the scenes. I know that sounds sort of esoteric and spacey, but that experience for me has been huge, and I'll tell you why. I realized that you can't have peace in your life if you're thinking about the past all the time. And you can't have peace in your life if you're thinking about the future, or if you're living in your fantasies, right? Or if you're just daydreaming all day, and if you're just distracted. Like the only way you can really have peace is to be present, is to be here right now. Like right now I'm in my car talking to you guys, I'm right here. And I think joy is another thing that you can't have unless you have presence. And joy to me is like, I would define it as when life sort of frames a moment for you of delight, of enjoyment, that's just for you. But you'll miss it if you're not present, right? Like for me, a good example, I have these moments where I'll see someone I love. I was at breakfast with my dad a month ago or so, and I just had this moment where I realized, like, this moment is for me. Like, I'm sitting here right now. No one's ever going to be me in this moment, sitting across from my dad, who's, 82 years old at this time, where I don't know how many more breakfasts I get with him. But, like, it was just this beautiful moment where I realized, like, this is all for me. And if I wasn't present for that moment, I would have missed it, right? If I'm just on my phone or if I'm in my head. And I think life does that for us if we're present, right? If you're just present, you'll see that, like, your life has sort of opportunities that are just for you, that no one else gets to see. And that to me is awesome, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I would just say, man, just have a practice of meditation. I don't care if you do it 2 minutes a day. Sit with your eyes closed for 2 minutes, or just even sometimes with your eyes open. You can meditate while you're driving, right? While you're walking. Just find yourself observing your thoughts. Let yourself observe your thoughts instead of just getting in the boats. And the more you do that, I think the more you'll find yourself present, and the more you'll feel like less tossed around on the waves of our emotions, bounced around.
I feel like for me, like it's gonna sound crazy, but to me, I feel like whenever I do get into that place of like anxiety or whatever, if I am running, if I'm running, because there's times I'll wake up early in the morning and I go for a run, and and that was like kind of like meditation for me, because I was like, okay,
absolutely.
I'm hearing me like inhale, exhale, and I'm like listening, but also like I have my music on as well, so I'm like
sure,
it's weird, but like it's weird, but I'm like I know I was present. And then as soon as
I really have felt the same way, and like running specifically is a great activity because your body is occupied doing something, and your mind on a basic level is like sort of running these functions that are happening, but they free you up to not be thinking so much, or just to let again. I know when I run or when I've had exercise like that, like a lot of thoughts are going through your head, but they sort of seem to pass. Like
Yeah.
you're not really necessarily in the boats, you know. It's the same thing. Just be mindful of not getting in the boats. That's great, man. I love that.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna definitely use that technique. I never knew about the whole boat thing or whatever, but I'm gonna definitely use that technique.
Yeah. Oh, and the author that I was thinking of was Thomas Keating earlier. He's an old Trappist monk who passed away probably 7 years ago, and he wrote a bunch of books on. He called it centering prayer, but I think like mindfulness meditation. Another lots of people write about it. Sam Harris is another one I really like.
No, yes. I mean, something that probably would also help is, of course, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, the journaling, man. I hear like a lot of people themselves, like when they're anxious, they write down their thoughts and what they're feeling. So that way later on, they kind of like examine what was going through their brain or going through their body as, those thoughts were coming in. And that way they understand that they're not dying, right? Because a lot of people, they get really anxious and it's like they kind of get a little bit haywire. You feel me? Myself included, I've had a few instances where I'm just like I'm tripping balls a little bit. I'm like, man, what's happening? And it's just because you guess because of stress, anxiety, a bunch of different factors, and a bunch of things going on in my life. But yeah, man, like Loki, that's like really therapeutic to hear that people have all of these different ways and exercises to actually calm their brain down and just get themselves centered and focused and live the moment, as you said.
That's it. Yeah, anxiety is almost always caused by. Or I shouldn't say it's necessarily caused by. Anxiety is always made worse by not being able to be present, right? Because when you're able to be present, you can just acknowledge that you're here. Even if your body is like, you're feeling chest pain or whatever it is, like, like just allowing it to be there is so much more helpful. Just to be like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this weird way. And it helps you address why you're feeling that way too. You're like, oh my god, my neck is so sore. Like, I need to stretch. I need to drink some freaking water. Right? Like, I haven't taken care of it. And it allows you to get closer to having that stuff dissipate than not, right? Than letting your thoughts run wild, which is the worst.
You're like, my neck slept wrong.
No, yeah. It's funny that you say that too, because I was literally just listening to a book called "Don't Feed the Monkey Mind," and it just talked about like a bunch of different.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it just talked about a bunch of different, basically psychological problems that a lot of people have, and one exactly it goes back to like what you exactly said right now, where if you're feeling pain in certain part of the areas, like try to breathe into that section because more than likely that's where you're holding on a lot of stress and a lot of your problems basically.
That's huge. I hate to say it, but I'm getting near this gig, and I might lose a signal here in a second. Maybe we should do a part 2 of this.
Yeah, sounds good.
Definitely.
If you want, Pedro, just close it out real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe
John, is there any word of advice you will give to the listeners?
I mean, as far as everything we talked about today, man, I think gosh, man, life is short. Enjoy it. Do what you want to do. Write down your goals and take steps to achieve them. And again, have cool friends like Pedro, and they'll be good people to support you. And Alex here, and just surround yourself with people who are good to you, and be good to yourself. That's what I'd say.
I love that. Definitely, we would be looking forward to part two with you. And thank you again for everything.
Oh my God,
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to just kind of chop it out with you. And congratulations on your second daughter or son or your second kid.
Son, yeah. Coming up August.
All right, man.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, man.
August is
August, baby.
August.
All right, man.
Cheers, you guys.
All right, cheers.
Cheers, you guys.